Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Connection Corner. I am Barb Nangle, and I'm the community manager at Known Co-working. In a few minutes, I am going to welcome Curt Johnson, who's the executive director of Save the Sound, and he's with us today to help celebrate Earth Day and to tell us what they're doing and what you can do to help save the Earth. But before I bring Curt on, I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about Known. It's a dynamic co-working community to connect people across their fields of expertise, endeavors, and experiences. And though we started as a co-working space in downtown New Haven, and we're still the only co-working space in downtown New Haven, we had to move our community to the virtual world once the pandemic hit. And as a reminder, Known Co-working has hourly, daily, and monthly plans for dedicated desks and office spaces, as well as conference rooms and Zoom rooms available for rent. If you'd like to know more about the space, feel free to send me an email. I'm at barb@knowncoworking.com. You can also check us out on our website at nhvknown, or follow us on Instagram or Facebook at knowncoworking.com and DM us there. So I mentioned that we moved our community online when the pandemic arrived, and as a result, we now have 3 virtual programs. So there's this one, the Connection Corner, Digital Media Sync, and Pivot Talk. You can catch free replays of all of them on our website at nhvknown.com under Known Live. Digital Media Sync is your window to the digital world, and it's hosted every week on Tuesdays at 8:30 by Julia Gambale. She is the social media maven of Agents of Branding. Pivot Talk is a virtual stage for businesses to share and learn as they grow, and that airs monthly. And then this show, The Connection Corner, is a place for entrepreneurs, artists, dreamers, thinkers, creators, educators, social justice workers, and community members to talk about who they are, what they do, who they serve, how, and why. And we air approximately weekly. If you or anyone you know would like to be on this show or on Digital Media Sync or Pivot Talk, go ahead and shoot me an email, barb@knowncoworking.com, and we'll talk about how we can make that happen. Our purpose in both the physical and virtual spaces is to make connections between people. We're here to help you get connected, inspired, and known. And speaking of getting known, every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m., I host virtual networking. You can find it by going to our website, nhvknown.com, and clicking on events. And when you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see an icon for virtual networking. You can click right on that, and it will land you in the virtual studio. And I am quite the connector. So just having time to talk with me so that I know who you are and who you're trying to meet helps me get to know you. And sometimes there'll be people on the networking episode when you're there that would be great for you to meet. But sometimes it will be, most of the time, it's after the fact. So I'd love to see you any Monday. You can come for any part of the time between 4 and 5. And you can come as often or as infrequently as you'd like. Now, let me introduce Curt. Welcome, Curt. Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy Earth Day.
Thank you, Barb. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
I'm really excited about this. So what we're going to do, folks, is I'm going to turn things over to Curt, and he's going to talk, and you just let me know when you're ready to share your screen, and I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll come back on either when I have a burning question or when you're kind of done with your presentation.
Great. Well, thank you, Barb. I'm Curt Johnson, longtime resident of your bioregion. I'm here talking as president of Save the Sound. And I think the highlights of my talk are going to be how you join our community to take action for environmental protection and action in our bioregion, why you should do that, and what we are doing as an organization that represents thousands of people in your region and beyond. And hope you'll join us. So I'll offer a couple of specific opportunities at the end, but I'll get started. I think just, letting you know what a bioregion is. So if you could click on and share the screen, that would be great, Barb. So the bioregion that you live in if you live in the New Haven area, is identified here on the map. Here's the city of New Haven. You know, this area, this territory is about the distance in the area that the Quinnipiac tribe occupied 400 to 500 to 1,000, 2,000 years ago. And just a little history on that. I think it's important to note that the tribe traveled throughout the area. They hunted, they used the marine resources in the summer, typically spent the winter up here in the more northern section camping out. This was an extremely rich area. By the time Davenport and his little crew came to New Haven in 1638, the tribe was already just a remnant of what it had been just a few years ago. In 1636, there was a plague that was brought down by colonial contact, and the tribe was probably already only half to a third of the people that it originally was. And it's a really sad story from the time that Europeans came in their interaction with the tribe. By the 1700s, early 1700s, the last remnant of the tribe was living on a reservation right where my cursor is on this east part of the park. If you want to go to that location around Earth Day, I think it's a great place to contemplate. If you travel up Main Street in New Haven, in East Haven, excuse me, off of Townsend Avenue, it's the first right, Beacon Street. And if you follow Beacon Street to the end, there's a small park there. It's very easy to find, and there's a small plaque, and that's looks out over the city. It looks out over the harbor. It looks out over Long Island Sound, and it's the last location. By the time of the Revolutionary War, the tribe here in New Haven was no more. They'd already moved up to Farmington, and then the last remnants of that collective group of people moved out to their sort of cousins out in Wisconsin. And there were some researchers who attempted to make some connection with the tribe about 20, 30 years ago and were unable to. So it's a sobering story on Earth Day about how we've interacted with our indigenous tribes here in the country, and the Quinnipiacs in particular. I'll also just reflect a little bit on, what transpired just a couple of days ago with the end of the trial of George Floyd's murder. And I just reflect on that. I think a lot of people are thinking about it. But to me, the fact that there was a guilty verdict is just a tiny sliver of hope. I would have been almost hopeless if that had been an acquittal. And I think that's what so many people are feeling right now. Which brings us around the thinking about environmental equity, and the fact that New Haven itself now is primarily our neighbors in New Haven and in Southern Hamden and over here in the Naugatuck, Ansonia area are now primarily Black and brown neighbors, and also economically distressed, really a community that has suffered from environmental racism and environmental injustice for a long time. And I'll tell just a couple of quick stories of actions we've been involved with recently. Here on the east side of New Haven, in Fairhaven, on Wheeler Street, there was a proposal about a year ago to locate what's lovingly called a putrescent garbage transfer station, which is liquid solid waste, and it's about as bad as it sounds. It would have affected the Quinnipiac River here. It would have obviously been an eyesore and nose sore to all the residents. I am so proud of the way that residents of Fairhaven came out. The city of New Haven, Justin Elliker reached out to us We have attorneys on staff. We worked with the attorneys from the city of New Haven, but we also worked with many local residents, many great environmental leaders in Fairhaven, and did succeed in getting the applicant for that liquid gross solid waste facility to withdraw their application. We're standing by in case there should be another application like this, but it's so typical of the experiences of brown and black primarily communities without a lot of income, who are faced with these really atrocious environmental insults being proposed. And we've been there and will continue to be there to fight with our lawyers alongside an alliance. Barb asked me to talk particularly about a location up here. Maybe I'll zero in just a little bit more, which, I'll give you a little wider context. So you can see this sort of blue arc of ponds, which is our Lake Whitney system. Lake Whitney is an active reservoir that you drink water from. If you're listening to this, program, and so protection of that drinking water is particularly important. Just south of this location is the Newhall community. It's a black, African American, Jamaican, Caribbean, American, great working class neighborhood that has itself had to deal with a lot of environmental issues, environmental contamination, which was cleaned up in the neighborhood. But just north of it is this location, which is the Olin Powder Farm. It's 102 acres. There's an image of it you might be able to see a little bit of. 6 ponds, we're calling it now, the 6 Ponds Lake and Nature Preserve Project. We were approached by Justin Farmer. Some of you know Justin. He's an up and rising, wonderful young town councilman, proud Jamaican American, who said, I've got a real problem here. This property needs to be made into a park. Can you help me? And this property is owned by the Olin Corporation. The Olin Corporation took it over from the Winchester Corporation. Those of you who've been around New Haven or have contacts in the community over a few generations know that Winchester was a huge arms manufacturer that both created pollution problems, but also employed tens of thousands of people in the city of New Haven years ago. This property was used by them to store gunpowder on it, also to test munitions. But now it's been in its natural state for decades and was identified by the DEEP 6 decades ago as having serious contamination problems. Olin did a little bit of cleanup there, removed the worst of the waste, but it's been sitting there with a huge 8-foot fence around it, keeping anyone who'd love to enjoy this natural location that is just north of this primarily black community that desperately needs places for people to stretch, people to get out and enjoy nature. And again, Justin is urging us to take it on. We are working with Elizabeth Hayes, who's a longtime Newhall leader. We're working with the Hamden Land Trust. We're working with many different community groups, and I'm really proud to report that the mayor of Hamden, Curt Lang, has lent us or directed one of his top people to be part of this coalition that's establishing. And we also went up and met with DEEP, who said they're going to be putting this environmental cleanup on a fast track. So, join us in that effort. Keep a look at our website, savethesound.org. and there'll be more opportunities for petitions and actions for that work. Really tremendously important. For those of you who love Long Island Sound, I'm proud to report down here that due to the work of us and many other groups, the state of Connecticut, the state of New York, EPA, many of our sister organizations, generally Long Island Sound is in much better shape than I was a kid. It's great to be working on a estuary system that's in a recovery phase. I think on Earth Day, it's important to be thinking about positives, but there's still a tremendous amount of work to be done. I'll just mention a couple of them. Here, you can see very faintly this long, about 2-mile section of beach along the West Haven shorefront. It is used by every imaginable shape and color of people in our general bioregion. People love to come to this beach. It's beautiful. The problem is that we are painfully aware, and EPA as well, that New Haven's sewage system has had a whole series of sewage overflows only a block behind this widely used beach for years. And as a result, EPA has issued a consent decree, a legal decree, to the city of West Haven to do repairs on this sewer system, stop those overflows. And we are very actively checking in every few months. We're sort of the eyes and ears of EPA here, making sure it happens. And we'll continue to do that. I'll just share that here, right in this same location of Wheeler Street, just a slight distance away where my cursor is the New Haven sewer plant. And what happened up here on the Mill River, right in this location, last summer in August, probably most of you remember this, there was a 2.2 million gallon raw sewage spill from a pipe that broke, and it ran down here into the harbor, and beaches all the way from, West Haven all the way out to Madison were closed for several days. It was a beautiful stretch of warm days. It was a great inconvenience. It was a health threat. We did a lot of research. We submitted FOIA requests to the WPCA. We met with them, and we discovered that they had been aware of that sewer break for at least 6 years. There had been a report in 2015 that section of sewer pipe was in the worst state that an engineer can classify sewer pipes in, and it needed follow-up. That follow-up never happened. We saw no plan for following up for its sewer pipes that was consistent and ongoing based on these kind of engineering investigations. So in November of this year, we filed a clean water action, a citizen suit against the New Haven WPCA. And, the whole purpose of it is just to make sure that they do, in fact, develop a series of investigations and ongoing maintenance for those pipes. So we never see that level of sewage overflow again. So we're working hard to keep your water clean. Would really appreciate your support. You can do that again by joining our citizen network, by going to savethesound.org. And I'll just share one last thing, which is, our ecological restoration work, which I'm so excited about. So we, I'm going to turn now to the West River, which extends over really in this area. You can see some of these green areas, which is West River Memorial Park, and then up into Edgewood Park, and a green area here, and it extends up here. This is a remarkable river system, but it still has major sewer overflows from combined sewers from New Haven. It's got a number of problems. We have opened that river up to fish again. We have worked with the city of New Haven to open up a tide gate here. We've taken down a dam up here at Pond Lily Pond Dam. I was just up yesterday with DEEP releasing hundreds of fish that will now repopulate this system. But we still have raw sewage running into here. What we're doing all in this neighborhood over here is working with a great organization, the New Haven Housing, and we're working with them on coordinating with their medium, moderate, and low income residents in their housing to build rain gardens that are beautiful. Number one, they're beautifying the city. They collect water, get it back down into the ground so it doesn't cause the combined sewer overflows I was talking about. And it involves, lots of kids from Solar Youth, lots of city kids, lots of city folks in really making their backyards beautiful and their streets more beautiful again. So that's just been a joy. We're continue to work on the West River, opening up and reestablishing fish there. We're working over here on the Farm River system on a watershed plan. Just last year, we took down opened up a section of river here by installing a fishway so that fish could swim all the way up into the upper reaches of the Farm River. We're working down here in cleaning up some of the beaches. There's just a tremendous amount of work. And the last thing I'll just say, we have ongoing citizen cleanups of the Farm River, of East Haven Town Beach, of this area along Long Wharf, Edgewood Park, Duck Pond, West River cleanup. So by all means, join us. Take a look at our calendar. You'll see upcoming events. Last year we had 1,500 people volunteering with us, cleaning up about 8 tons of trash up and down the coast. But today I'm just really focusing on your ecosystem here and how we're working in your area. I guess the last final thing that I'll mention when we go out just a little bit farther is a really exciting project we have here on the Housatonic River. That's the last river. This was sort of the very western river of the Quinnipiac tribe's reach. And the Kinneytown Dam is a dam up on the Housatonic, up on the, Naugatuck River. Sorry about that, up on the Naugatuck. It is really a derelict electrical producing dam. It produces almost no electricity now, but it's blocking fish from getting upriver for another 20 miles. And taking down that river would be sort of a last huge foundational step in returning life and returning really health to a river system that when I was a kid was so badly damaged by industrial waste. I mean, this was a huge industrial valley with everything from plastic, metalworking, heavy metals, dyes from all kinds of different factories going into it. And now it's running so much cleaner. Now it's an opportunity to reopen it again to fish so that we start to rebuild the abundance of fish that, was enjoyed here by the Quinnipiacs years ago. So I think that's probably all I have to say. We, we use all kinds of tools. We have lawyers on board. We have really outstanding outreach people. We have ecological engineers and people in the community working with us on volunteers on these ecological restoration projects, whether it's opening up rivers or building rain gardens. And, we need every one of those tools and all of you to bring back and restore the habitats, the life, the health, the air, cleanliness of the air of this area. The last thing I'll do is end with a plea to you to join me in calling on our state legislators to pass this legislative session, the Transportation and Climate Initiative. You heard today from the president announcing a really bold proposal to cut climate emissions by 50% in this country in 9 years. Transportation is Connecticut's biggest source of global warming pollution, of carbon emissions. And this initiative, which would create basically a cap and trade program for our transportation system, would ratchet down pollution by 30% over the next 10 years, get us a long way towards the president's goal, is absolutely essential. And what I'll talk about that's so important for New Haven and other distressed communities is that it will raise about $60 million to $100 million a year. And the legislative proposal that passed out of committee, but it has to be passed by the whole General Assembly, that proposal would send 50 cents of every dollar raised back to places like New Haven, places like Ansonia and Seymour, and places out in the country as well. Some of our poorest neighbors live in rural areas in Connecticut, and it will create clean transportation alternatives for those folks, whether it's clean electric transit buses in New Haven and Ansonia, in Seymour and Hamden, and throughout the region, or whether out in the hinterlands, it will allow more dial ride service for our seniors with clean electric vehicles. It's all a direction we have to move in to make our communities safer, clean up our air, cut down on asthma, and save the planet. So those are just a handful of the things we're involved
Just a handful.
We need your help. My last plea is to join us as members. It's $25 a year. It's a bargain. You can go to savethesound.org. It will show up right on the top of the screen. Join our citizen network. There's 18,000 people from New Haven over to Long Island and New York City and out to the tip of Long Island that are working with us. It's only through voices like yours that we're able to make this work happen. Barb, I turn it over to you.
Take the map down?
Sure.
Okay, and I do want to let people know that map is on your website.
It is indeed. If you go to our website and you just type in impact map, it's the Save the Sound impact map.
Okay.
About us. Yeah.
Well, I'm realizing I still have the Stay Tuned banner in the background there. All right. So I want to start by saying I am absolutely in love with the fact that you started by talking about the Quinnipiac tribe. I think that is so important, and I do want to tell people who are watching, the way that I really met Curt was through a group called Connect, which is Congregations Organized for New Connecticut, and it was an anti-racism conversation. And the way that we both came at it was just really amazing. And the fact that he takes that lens into the work that he's doing here, I think is so important, especially in this region. As you mentioned, the preponderance of people are people of color. And the fact is that, environmental racism is real, and they are the ones who are the most detrimentally affected by all this, the crap that's going on. So I just really want to highlight, I'm so grateful, that you talked about that. And So you talked about people joining you. So you mentioned $25 a year. So what happens like when they join? So you, Save the Sound gets some money. What else happens?
Well, you will get regular updates from us about activities that are going on. So we have regular webinars, especially during our virtual time, right? You'll get information about our citizen opportunities for engagement. For instance, we every year we have multiple opportunities for people to come out and learn about rain gardens, actually get their hands dirty, and meet some neighbors who are doing really cool stuff in New Haven on their property, and learn from them about how to do it in your own backyard. You will learn about our annual meeting. We always have a very inspirational leader. Probably most importantly, you'll know that you're part of a community making a real difference in your individual bioregion. You know, I just focused on the New Haven area because that's where most of your members are. But, you know, I could be giving a similar conversation about the Bridgeport, you know, greater Bridgeport area. You know, I could be giving a similar presentation about the greater Westchester area. Each of them with their own tribes, each of them with their own story, each of them with their own challenges, and each of them with projects that we need to collectively move forward. You know, it's amazing what people can do when they gather together, and the only way we do this work is working with lots of other organizations and working with hundreds of people.
Yeah. So I have a variety of questions, and I'm like, oh, what do I ask next? So I think I want to highlight. You mentioned that Justin Farmer approached you because they really needed help in turning the Olin powder farm into a park and getting it cleaned up. So how, like, let's say somebody's living in a neighborhood in New Haven and there's some kind of environmental injustice happening, and they really want help. How, like, what's the best way to reach out to Save the Sound to see if your organization is or is not the right organization to help them? And what happens from there once they reach out?
Yeah, so I'll give my email right now. I mean, there's a variety of different ways you can reach out. I'll give my the telephone number in general is 203-787-0646. Probably better to share my email, cjohnson@savethesound.org. There's also a info connection on our website, which we do, you know, we get questions within 24 and 48 hours we respond. So that may be the simplest way to do it. And especially from, you know, communities who need our help, we will respond and listen. And sometimes we can help. Sometimes we connect people to other organizations, of which there's a number. You know, there is, for instance, an Office of Environmental Justice up in the DEEP, our Connecticut Environmental Agency. Sometimes that's the best place to go. There's other groups very much working in the environmental justice space. And so we're happy to make those connections from people.
Okay.
You know, we're trying to pivot more and respond a little bit more like we did with Justin, which is to listen and learn and respond to the needs. But we're a very, you know, we're a small organization with lots going on. So, you know, our resources are pretty stretched. So.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention was when you were talking about the West River and how it had been opened up. I want to say, so my partner Chuck lives. I don't know if you know that he lives over in Westville, and he happens to be very interested in birds. Not that he's not interested in fish, but he really loves birds, and he used to also sail a lot. So we pick up garbage across the street. I live across from Fort Hale Park. And that's one fun thing that we do together is pick up garbage. he is a longtime outdoorsman, and he has a number of times talked to me about the enormous impact to the whole ecosystem over in Westville, because what's happened, because the fish are back, the birds are back. So,
Absolutely.
like eagles and
Absolutely.
that sort of thing. And it's
Yeah,
amazing to see how there's this just domino effect of, when
absolutely.
these animals come back and the rest of them. So I just,
Oh,
want you to know, like, it's so
yeah.
exciting.
It is enormously exciting.
Mm,
We may be one of the only urbanized estuarine systems, and what I mean by that is a system whose water is a mixture of salt and
mm,
fresh, right? Which
mhm.
creates this bouillabaisse for life, right?
Yeah.
We may be the only urbanized one that's actually in a restoration and a recovery mode in the world.
Mm. Wow.
So we need to celebrate that, and we need to protect it and make sure it's happening. So your point about the West River is so apt, and one symbol is that we now have nesting bald eagles
Mm.
along the West River, which I never thought I would see in my lifetime. I
Yeah.
mean, when I was a kid, there were no ospreys in this area, let alone eagles, because
Yeah.
they've been so decimated by DDT, DDE. And as
Mhm.
you point out, the food source had gotten so low. So
Mhm.
when you have these river herring primarily and other fish that swim up the rivers to spawn, and then, that's what they're doing right now. I mean, they're moving up all these rivers, everyone I talked about, and for the Quinnipiac, these fish were a lifeblood for them
Mm.
because, even though this is a lovely time, it's getting warmer. If you are a hunter gatherer, it's like the worst time of the year because all of your stores for the winter have pretty much evaporated. Your garden is not yet going, right? And all the game is just about starved to death because
Mm.
it used to be called the starving season right now in
Mm.
March and April. So at that time, the rivers would literally turn black with the river herring moving up. And of course, our Quinnipiacs would be out getting those herring and smoking them and surviving on them for these 2 months. For us, it's so critical for all of the life that's migrating back now,
Mhm.
for those ospreys, for those
Mhm.
bald eagles,
Mhm.
for the striped bass, for a whole myriad, and it will be for the egrets. The egrets are coming up now, and they've already made it. They've got things they can feed on now when they get up here. But in the fall, all of those baby fish are going to be coming down the river, and those egrets and herons are going to be gorging on them, and they need to gorge on them in order to build up their body weight for this enormous migration they're going to be making again. So if we're going to have our feathered neighbors come back again,
Mm.
we got to make this bioregion as rich as possible. And
Mm.
it thrills me to no end that, seeing bald eagles now is no longer a luxury item for the wealthy who could travel up to Alaska, which was the way it was when I was a kid, right? Now, city kids in New Haven, in the hill, can walk 10 blocks to a river that has bald eagles.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's really incredible. So, if people want to volunteer for any one of the cleanups, et cetera, you have, I'm guessing the best way to find out about that stuff is to get on the email list to join as a member.
Absolutely. And you can go to our website and look at the calendar. And also, you can go to our staff and look for Valerie.
Mhm.
Valerie is our volunteer coordinator. So if someone is listening to this and they're really moved and they're thinking, my God, I'd love to volunteer for this organization for, say, 8 to 12, 15 hours a week. Like, this is what I want to do. Get in touch with Val because,
Yeah.
depending on your skill set, there's
Mhm.
probably, something for you to plug into here. We need a movement.
Mhm.
We,
Yeah.
we really do. And I'll just end with how important it is for anyone listening to be in touch with your state legislators and beg them to pass the Transportation Climate Initiative this year. That's, to me, the most important and the most difficult piece of legislation to pass, even though it's the only way to get to our state mandate, which is our own state mandate, is to reduce climate pollution by another 30% by 2030. 9 years from now, we won't be able to do it without passing TCI. There's just no way.
And is there information about that bill on the Save the Sound website?
Yeah, I think if you we have a climate section about our programs, and there should be there. But if you sign up, if you go up to the top about getting involved, there's an option for joining our network. That's the best thing to do, is to join our network. Join 18,000 other people who are making a difference, whose voices are making a difference around the region.
So I will be joining when I get off the show. And also I send out the replay to this for everybody that's on our email list. And I will go to your website and make sure I put links in the email that we send out to people to make it so all they have to do is click. And they're on your website, or all that stuff. So okay. Do you, any last words that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Well, I just would say, it's a really daunting time, but what is happening in your bioregion this spring is a bit of a harbinger of hope, right? There's so much more to do. And I beg you guys to join us in making it happen. So
great. Thank you so much, Curt. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to take you off the air to close up, but if you wouldn't mind sticking around for a minute or so, just so I can close up with you, would be great. All right. Thank you so much, Curt.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye, Barb.
Yeah. Oops. I put you on instead of me. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today for the Connection Corner. Thank you to Curt and for all those who made the Save the Sound organization possible. Hopefully you'll get involved and be on the lookout for the email from me. Don't forget that this coming Tuesday on Digital Media Sync at 8:30, Julia Gambale will be sharing her words of wisdom and often skills and tools for how to make the most out of your digital media. Our next show for the Connection Corner is going to be Tuesday, the 27th at 1 p.m. And we will be featuring the last 3 knownpreneurs from our BIPOC business support program, Knownpreneurs Growth Lab. And all 3 of these entrepreneurs provide some form of hospitality. And also, even if you're watching the recording, go ahead and leave a comment and we will make sure that it gets to Curt. So thank you again, everybody. Enjoy this beautiful afternoon and happy Earth Day.